Rob and Colin, how are we today?
Fantastic.
Wonderful.
Happy to be here.
I'm so excited, guys. So for the listeners, I spoke to Katina Kohler's Vistage Group in Arizona. I gave my, whole spiel for 3 hours, and then Rob and Colin told their 10-minute story, and I was like, I think yours is way better than mine. And so I just honestly, I was laughing, but also there were so many great themes, guys, about like just the grind and the grit and the peaks and valleys, as you had mentioned, Rob and Colin, as we were kind of having a conversation about this. But why don't we just start with, how did you guys end up becoming entrepreneurs? And I phrase it like that, guys, now, because I used to say, how'd you plan on becoming an entrepreneur? And like 90.9% of the people are like, or 9.9 out of 10 were like, we never planned on it. So I'm curious on like, how did you fall into entrepreneurship? I know there's a crazy ride that we're going to go through, but we'll kind of give everybody the 50,000 foot view first.
I would say our background, we're 4 kids within 5 years, Irish Catholic family, dad's a doctor, the most non-business guy you could think of, you wouldn't want to send him to negotiate a deal because he's just going to, lay over for you. So, but yet 3 of the 4 kids invest in real estate pretty early on. And one thing I was thinking about with Rob, when you asked that question, we were in Weeblos and Cub Scouts. And this is a good image. My brother has a great idea. Let's make some money. And who does he use? Me. So, I'm the younger brother. I put on my little Cub Scout outfit, and he sends me door to door asking for donations. And
that's awesome.
And they were like, one family was like, "Well, what is this for?" And I was like, "I don't know, conventions and things." So we were liars early on. No, I'm kidding. I think we just had a desire to kind of cut our own path. More real estate speculation had accumulated more wealth in the U.S., and we always wanted to do that. That was kind of the end goal, didn't know how to get there. But in between kind of college and real estate, I think there were some tracks that we cut our own teeth on and took some risks and made some money. So it was
why real estate for you guys? What was the real estate gravitational pull?
It's interesting, I think that first seed capital from the Weeblos venture, my dad caught on to that and had us donate that to the church. So that was
that's so
great.
That
tale. We went to Baylor and we were entrepreneurship majors, so we definitely had the bug from the beginning that we wanted to summer jobs. We do roof coating and stuff like that. So we always kind of had it in mind that eventually we wanted to chart our own path. The first business I bought was with an SBA loan. Friend of the family had a company who's moving out of state, so we wanted to sell it. Sorry. So I didn't have any money, so basically I got my real estate license and built a commission into the deal. So the commission was about $20,000 more than the down payment. So
you financed your own commission? That's fantastic.
No money down. I love it. The true no money down transaction.
So that's awesome.
I bought first $1.5 million business right after college, and then
what was the business, Rob?
It was a truck accessories company, camper shells, big cab over campers. I'd never owned a pickup truck in my life, so I had to learn all the right terminology and stuff to do it. But it had a great team, and so had a manager in place that had been there for 20 years, and so he was pretty pissed that I was coming in as a new owner. So I made a deal.
How in God's name did you think that this was a strategy at that early age, like to buy an SBA loan, buy a business, especially one that you're not? Because I've watched people, Rob, where they kind of flop into it, where they were in the business and the industry for a long time, found a way to get an SBA loan, then buy it. And so like, what was the thought process of like when you went about doing that?
I've been looking at a number of different businesses for buying businesses, and then the friend of the family kind of came along.
Got it.
But I liked the idea of an established, stable business that was throwing off $350,000 net income that could support that. So for me, it was kind of a safe first play, and I had a great existing management team. So I made a deal with that manager that if he, stayed with it and ran the place, I'd help him buy it and get an SBA loan after 5 years. So ended up helping him get an SBA loan and cashing me out.
No kidding. Built-in exit plan from day one. That's very rare. That's awesome.
So that's great. Gave us a stable base of operations. My brother joined me about halfway through.
I was, my college summers, I was selling books door to door. So, I'm the youngest of four kids to get out of school. My dad's paid for, law school and nursing school. And I tell dad, I'm not going to graduate this summer because I got a great job. Well, what are you going to do? I'm going to sell books door to door. He said, that's a scam. Don't do it. I said, Dad, I've met people that have made $5,000 and more, and I'm going to do it. And so grateful I did that summer. I said, Dad, I'm even going to pay for my last semester at Baylor. I believe so well. I'm going to do well. So I worked hard that summer and didn't make any money. No, I'm kidding. It was a natural thing for me. So first day had 10 customers and was like, wow, this is great. Made about, I think, 17,000. So back in the 90s. But the money gets spent. But what I learned at the kitchen tables sitting next to, Mrs. Jones was just that cycle of selling, how to build rapport, and really thrived in that environment. So I was recruiting and training. And then I decided, I was in another business actually, and decided, my wife and I thought, we really feel like we're led to go into business with Rob. So took a pay cut, really, showed up, I don't know anything about truck accessories. A guy walks in and goes, hey, can you show me some toppers? I said, sure. Rob, do we have any toppers? I had no idea what a topper was. Well, a topper is a camper shell. And that's all the business did was sell camper shells. There's like 300 of them on the lot. So it was humbling. I was like, yeah, let me get right on that. So we didn't really have a plan necessarily. It was a good, stable business, but it gave us, I think in entrepreneurship, we learned team first, idea second. It's all about the team. Who's doing what? Do you have synergy? Right seats, right trust. And we literally didn't have a plan going forward. And so I think the first idea really came within about 3 to 6 months.
Yeah. So Arizona in '99 had a tax credit, $10,000 tax credit for a golf cart. It was a state tax credit. So, higher income earners could qualify for it. We found out.
So Rob, I know, right, or know where you're going with this, Rob. Do we want to give some context of why you guys started this? I don't know if we want to go back to like or was this before that?
This is before
This is way before.
Oh no shit!
Yeah. So this is in 1999.
Wow. This was kind of the prelude that kind of.
Oh, I missed that part the first time. Got it. Cool. So keep going. Sorry.
So we found out about it. A few days before the end of the year. Had my dad run out and buy a $10,000 golf cart that was free.
Really nice ones. It looks like a little Lincoln, has seatbelts and blinkers and taillights and street legal.
But basically, then Arizona extended the tax credit till June. So we had 6 months in June. So we started calling around. We finally found none of the big manufacturers would sign up a couple of kids that were fresh out of college and didn't really have a golf cart experience. We found a manufacturer in California to make one for us. Like they couldn't offend their other dealers, so we had them make a stripped down unit for us that was not in competition with their dealer network. And Colin basically put it on the back of a trailer and a truck and showed up at all my dad's friends' doctor's offices.
Yeah, this is really kind of pre-internet. So Rob's like, what do you think? I'm like, I think I can sell these. We can sell some of them.
I just love it so much.
But let's order the first 10. And so they required, was it the first 5, I think?
No, first 10.
First 10, they wanted a wire, So Rob wires a check, sends a wire and then stops payment on it.
I panicked. What the hell are we doing?
I mean, we thought they're going to change the law. We're stuck with all these expensive golf carts nobody wants. And so I said, Rob, I think I can sell them. So I basically went to the higher earner individuals, showed up at their office, and I'd say, hey, did I catch Dr. Rothbaum between patients? I'm Dr. Reilly's son. So they're like, okay, you're not a pharmaceutical rep. You don't have donuts. You must be a friend. So,
they're trying to place you. Like, what's going on here?
I look out of place. So he comes out and I go, look, you're definitely not in the market for a golf cart. I'm convinced of that. But I've got one parked out front. And for the next couple of months, the state of Arizona is going to hand you the keys because you're already paying the taxes. So now you can actually redirect where those tax dollars go. You're going to pay $10,000 state tax. And so people are like, well, what am I going to do with I said, it doesn't matter. You donate it to the church or the synagogue or do whatever you want, And so slowly we began to sell the first 10. Let's order another 10 and then another 10. And within 4 months, we sold, 250 of them and made $1 million,
I love it. Did Rob, did you have the trucking accessory business at the same time?
Yeah, it was at the same time. So
Okay.
that was kind of running itself. I mean, I was more involved on the product and pricing and that kind of stuff and the financial side of it, but daily it ran itself. So this one gave us a great base of operations to pursue these other
Got it.
But we had no showroom. It was literally me in a truck driving around. And I was not showing it to people that were interested in golf carts. I was showing it to people with a high income. So one double income, double physician couple said, we'll buy 3 or 4 of them. And like, it just made sense, So we always look back at that experience and thought, had we been a little bit more sophisticated, could we have taken a better swing at that, made a lot more money? So that was in 2000. And so we made a little bit of money. I think we continued to do Arizona Truck Outfitters, sold that within a couple of years, sitting on some cash. And then our sister out of Texas said, have you heard of this We Buy Ugly Houses company? We said, no, we have no idea. She said, it's HomeVestors. It's a franchise. And, being arrogant, we're like, well, we're not really franchise kind of people, And she's like, they were buying real estate at a discount. And we thought, that is brilliant, because we knew what a mortgage was. Did we know anything else about real estate? That's about it. So, that was the extent of our knowledge. So we paid $50,000 in 2003, flew out to Dallas for a week of training, surrounded by people that had spent their lives in this business. They had been real estate agents or contractors, mortgage guys, whatever, and quickly realized that it was a lead generation mechanism where you would advertise, a national advertise, the franchisee pays for the advertising, leads come in, and then it's sitting at the kitchen table with Mrs. Jones again, trying to close a deal. So that was familiar to me. I had to learn how to value a property, how to establish, comp, analysis and back out repairs. But that was kind of our process, and we went head first into that. It was 0 to 100 miles an hour pretty fast. Yeah.
Did you guys read like Think and Grow Rich, like the Rich Dad Poor Dad? I was thinking about like your dad being it sounds like he was a physician, but like going like were your parents like, who are these kids? Like, we had jobs and like they're out like just doing random things. Like, how did that all come to be?
Yeah. I think they knew that we were interested in entrepreneurship early on. And so they're definitely supportive of it. My dad definitely co-invested alongside of us on a number of deals.
But just to give a little context, our dad born and raised in the Irish Catholic boroughs of Brooklyn, always identified better with the middle to lower class. Just that, even as a physician, as a surgeon, it was taking a subway an hour and a half each way to go to Fordham a day. So he's reading and he's learning, and he had the love of learning, worked in a factory one summer and thought, oh, I get to learn new things. And so then he gets into Columbia Medical School, surprise, and his professors are like, you could go anywhere. You should go to Columbia, and meets my mom there and comes out. So there was always a little bit of a separation between, it was almost like different planets a little bit. He was a older dad. He was 32. I think he had a hard time identifying with us on some level, because you want to give your kids what you don't have, but then you realize it's your life experience that taught you who you are, and in a way you're kind of robbing your kids of that experience, because struggle is good, right? So we didn't have that struggle. We had our own struggles. There's always struggles in life. So I think Dad applauded it because it was so outside of his DNA that he just thought it was marvelous that we stepped into this head first.
So you guys start going into real estate then. What was the conversation? I mean, I'm trying to think of like the chatter back and forth with your parents. Like, so you've sold the business, you're getting into real estate. And I don't know where in the path you guys went to ask them for money. Like, as in like, are they that bought in at this point, or did they watch you do it a couple times?
Real estate's tremendously capital intensive. So you can have $1 million in the bank on Monday and be scrambling for dollars by Friday, depending which deals you find. And Colin's skill set as far as buying, closing deals really came into play there, because it was, like you said, once a phone rang, you were on your own. I mean, the franchise is a lead generation system. But once that phone rings, so I think the first year we bought, it was halfway through the year, so I guess we bought 50 properties, then 150, then 180. So we're buying probably 15 to 20 something houses a month.
Yeah, I recruited guys that I had sold books with back in the day. Same thing. They understood that. And then I think Rob had great foresight with like how to get creative financing. Our dad did provide a $500,000 line of credit, which was helpful, but you burned through that.
That's how you guys started that snowball. I mean,
Yeah.
truly with a $500,000 line of credit. I mean,
Yeah.
like into, wow.
Yeah, and really, it's several businesses in one. It's the acquisition, having to buy right and make your money on the buy, and then it's learning construction. How do you hire contractors? How do you deliver to the market, a finished product? How do you go too far? Do you go not far enough? You make all those mistakes along the way. Are you sanding cabinets, or do you rip them out and replace them?
Mm-hmm.
And then disposition. How do you time things so that you have a pipeline that's constantly kind of replenishing? And it was like drinking from a fire hose. And we became the number one franchisee in the country. So we're going to conventions, and we gave the applause to our team, who was so good at, we had assembled these amazing people, but we'd be the breakout session speakers, and people would come and follow us and learn because other people would be struggling. The same guy could get the same lead. One guy makes 50 grand, the other guy loses money, right? Because you're negotiating for yourself what you're paying for that house. And it is a dance. And then, how much do you put into the property? So we just kind of learned that we were actually pretty good at it. Then the music stopped.
Well, break down your guys' roles. And I got to give some context, guys, because so I have twin daughters. I don't know if you caught that when when I was down there. So like when you said, Rob, like your whole Weeblo thing. So my daughter Zoe, she's for sure the one that's like, hey, Ev, go over this fence. I can guarantee you this is going to happen. Go over that fence. Go into that fridge, get the beer, come back over. and Everly would be like, sure. And so I know that it's like they're great for each other. I'm curious, in your guys' roles, like how did you guys, was there communication of the different roles and skill sets, or because you guys have been different yin and yang for your whole life? Like how did that come to be as far as like your roles and how you guys work together?
It's a great question. I suppose it's mutual respect. Like I think there's nobody better at executing in sales than my brother. Like it's accurate. I mean, he's phenomenal at it.
And Rob's the guy that stands at the bow of the ship, with his telescope, searching for distant destinations that nobody else has in their sights. So
that's awesome.
It was a little intuitive, but I remember we had a business coach doing personality profiles and temperaments, and this came into play where he loves to spitball ideas. I mean, he can live in his head 24/7, so life is a puzzle, and his job is to kind of solve it, and come up with new mousetraps. And executing is maybe not his forte, but he's the dreamer. And so he's giving us some ideas during the Arizona Truck Outfitters days. And I'm like, yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah. Well, 2 hours later, I've got a team meeting and we're like talking about he's like, no,
I was thinking out loud.
Don't do that. So we did kind of learn to stay in our own lanes. And I think, as my parents always used to say, in marriage, we're designed to grind, rub the rough edges off each other. And there's some overlap, and I think we make each other better. It's true synergy. 2 + 2 is 10. And we've really never had a debate or discussion about money and this sort of thing. So there's
that's awesome.
Trust.
Well, it's awesome. And the reason I was bringing that up, guys, is because, if you recall from the workshop, we were talking about leadership roles versus equity, and so many people get those all swirled together. And it sounds like the roles are kind of clear as far as how you guys were both structuring it. So like, as you guys are rolling, like that snowball, like my God, would you say 15 houses a month, Rob? Like that's a pretty intense snowball. And that started in what, 2000, early 2000s, you were saying?
2003 to 2008. So we really couldn't miss. I mean, to think of the market in 2003, 4, 5, right? You're buying a tight deal and suddenly making 50 or 80 grand on it. And it's, we just rode the market. There was, I wouldn't have articulated this at the time, but there was probably some pride in there and some we're untouchable and we have the golden touch. And yeah, it's a team effort, but we really got this. And 2008, it's like somebody unplugged the treadmill, and we're in full sprint. And we knew the market was going to change. We knew a lot of our buyers were subprime buyers. When the guy at the bank teller's telling you about the third rental house they're on, or you're like, this doesn't make sense. It's got to come to an end. And so that buyer pool evaporated. Meanwhile, there's half-built subdivisions all over town, and it was such a fast demise. I don't think the charts really accurately.
I think in Arizona, 25% of the employment economy was tied to real estate. So
holy shit, man! Wow,
it was a huge percentage. So when that stopped, it wasn't just the bricklayers and the drywallers that were out of a job. It affected everything.
Furniture and you name everything.
Lenders, escrow, title, guys at Home Depot, and so it affects the economy. Values plummet, but then everybody's income comes down, and the rental houses, we had about 160 of them. We think we have millions of dollars in equity in there. We haven't really pulled that money out, and our rates are a little high because it's 6 or 7%. Rents get lowered. We're getting squeezed, as much as $150,000 a month, of negative cash flow.
And prices were dropping so much. I think, when they give those national figures that fell 20-something%, it masks the reality of the bloodbath that it was in certain neighborhoods. A few years, so there was a house that we sold for around $250,000 that, so that we would have sold that in 06 or 07. I bought it back from the courthouse steps in 2010 or 11 for $50,000.
Oh my God!
Some of these neighborhoods, a lot of the neighborhoods that we bought in, were hit 75-80%. They were just
well, and that's on the equity side, and the cash flow. You already mentioned, Rob, that the cash flow your guys is an industry, which I'm aware of, is already like a roller coaster, and then you throw in a shitstorm like this. Going back to Colin's analogy of your like little eye gazing into the future, how did this start to trickle into your brain of like, oh, okay, what do we got going, and how fast did that happen, and what did that happen?
We were standing too close to the chalkboard to really see it. We should have known. We were in the best place to know. We had a mortgage broker who used to call us upset at least once a month because he had a first payment default, which means somebody we sold the house to never made a single payment. They're buying him on these.
Oh my gosh!
And he only cared because his commissions got clawed back if they didn't at least make one payment. So he called pissed off that somebody hadn't. He was like, "Get in touch with these people. Have them make a payment." But the fact, it's so easy to see in retrospect how fragile the system was. But at the time, people would call us on a house that we had listed for $200,000 and offer us $170,000, and we tell them where they could shove it, and how dare you, hang up the phone.
Mm-hmm.
4 months later, are you still interested in that lovely property? The prices just kept going down. So here we had, like Colin said, 50 to 60% equity in the properties at the start, and we ended up underwater on 160 properties.
It was a struggle. It was a struggle to the ego, the reputation, feeling like you're not smart and you can't make any money. And it was probably stifling for Rob. I think it was hard because there was just not a lot of end in sight. And so he couldn't look at the environment and think, let's jump in the trenches and make this work. Because he was like, we got to do something. So I was kind of in there unwinding liabilities as best we could. Our dad had signed on the bank line. So the thought of tarnishing his reputation. So we're basically selling houses just to pay off debt. And my Land Rover key was turned in because my lease was up. And I owed so much money to so many people. I thought I'm going to ride my bike to work, And so the kids thought it was fun in the summer. Hey, we're going to ride our bike to Dad's office and get exercise. We couldn't really afford a car. It was like it was just that bad.
I think you guys actually said when I met you guys, it was like catching a falling knife, and that analogy is still stuck in my head.
Yeah, and we got stung to the point. There's some peers we have; they still haven't recovered from what happened in Tucson in 2008. So let's just say it was a spiritual awakening for us because you learn that you really don't control circumstances. You learn that there's peaks and valleys in everybody's life, and the merit of a man is in that moment. when you're really being crushed, how do you respond? Are you faithful? Are you dedicated? Are you perseverant? And it was a true test to our core. We're renting our personal houses out to baseball players here for spring training, furnished rentals before it was kind of cool, just to pay bills. And it seems like it was an eternity, but it was really about a year and a half period. Meanwhile, Rob I give him the freedom, go dream, go do what you want to do. And you were talking to a buddy in '09, which was kind of our lowest point where we're really struggling and looking for a new opportunity.
Yeah, I'll echo what Colin said. I mean, you go from helping people in distress and dealing with that population that you're the one getting phone calls from creditors. And it was tremendously, we never worked so hard for so little money. I mean, nothing worked. Like here, we had this long string of doing well and everything that we put ourselves into. We met some measure of success, but then all of a sudden nothing worked. And we're riding our bikes to work. We get a friend who call and ask us to go out to lunch. We'll be there in 30 minutes. We're only a mile away. Yeah, but we got to ride our bike over there.
We'd show up drenched with sweat. They're like, what the hell's going on with you guys?
Hey, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the interview with Colin and Rob. One thing that I really appreciated about Colin and Rob is their perspective. And the one thing over my highs and lows of running and selling and turning around the family business, as well as my 2 first failed startups, as well as growing Arcona and managing all of our clients, is a framework for perspective. Perspective is so damn important because if we understand the progress that we're making, even if we're doing hard work, I think we can all be excited to do the hard work. But if we have decisions in front of us, like launching that product or service or buying that company or selling the business, taking the out of the blue offer, hiring that CEO, how in God's name do we know whether we should or shouldn't be doing those things if we don't know if it's getting us closer to our goals? And more specifically, a valuable company that's going to give us the choices to do what we want when we want. The one thing I would recommend if you want that perspective is go check out the Intentional Growth Starter Kit. It's got 5 videos on the 5 principles, as well as a scorecard that grades you on how well you're running the company like a financial asset. And that framework can then help you answer some of the questions that are sitting in front of you and help you tie those decisions to some long-term goal that may or may not be clear. And if you remember, intentional growth is purposeful action towards a clearly identified outcome. So go check out the Intentional Growth Starter Kit, and I will leave you with the rest of the Reilly brothers and more gold nuggets and more laughter. So I have a couple questions on this because we were really close. We had $250,000 payroll every 2 weeks. We were actually financing our receivables, so we had no line of credit when we were turning the business around. So I think about what we went through, and it was like probably a fraction of what you guys went through. The amount of emotional distress that we went through, and I personally went through, was real. And I'm just curious on how you both dealt with I'm trying to think of, bear with me for a second. So you have that, what we had is everybody oh, you have 100 employees, 20 million in revenue, and you're an advertiser for the while, and you're going, I don't have a pot to piss in, and I'm just trying to make everything work. And there's this dichotomy of what everybody thinks you are, what is going on, yet you're to try and deal with it, you'd have to reconcile what everybody thinks. And it's just this horrible ego, dealing with what everybody thinks, which I think, and as I watch entrepreneurs, it's always around the corner. And I think a lot of times we go 30% longer than we should have instead of just dealing with the shit. And I'm just kind of curious of how you guys dealt with it emotionally, of that. I mean, the story, we're joking around right now, and I don't know if you had that kind of, positive, you gotta, deal with it, or how did you cope with it?
I think it came in waves. You don't realize that you were prideful because I think that we were involved in our churches, and we were certainly felt that we had the right mindset until the rug gets pulled out from you, and you realize how much of your self-image had been tied up in the wrong things. The ability to provide, the ability to lead and employ and create things. All of a sudden that's ripped from you, and you realize, what are the important things in my life? On my deathbed, I'm not going to be recounting my success stories. It's going to be my family and my faith. And so it brought a lot of spiritual growth, realignment, realizing what's important on not just on a surface level, but truly.
Mm-hmm.
So,
there were some low points. I mean, again, I think Rob, had a hard time looking at the mess and going, "Oh yeah, I want to get out there and pull a couple weeds in a field of weeds." He just couldn't see the benefit of that. So I think there were some hard moments where it's like we need to be looking beyond where we're at, and that's his strength. It was taxing on our marriages, taxing on we've got young kids. We're trying to shield them from this sort of thing, and Friday night was no longer, going and spending a bunch of money. It was ordering a pizza and, getting a Blockbuster and playing games, and just made it work. But I think looking back, we go, I would have never learned what I know today had I not walked through that. But it was painful. It was hard. You never wish pain on yourself or your family, but on the other side of it that you are a recipient of growth because of that.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't grow when you're killing it. You really don't.
Isn't that interesting, guys, too? Because I get the question almost every time I do a workshop of like, what would you have done differently? And like, I'm curious in like how you guys answer. Cause I think it's nothing, cause I enjoy my life, and you're not who you are without experiencing what you went through. You just hope that you're not in the middle of a shitstorm while we're having this conversation. Right. And so I'm just kind of, where did you start to see some of that clarity, Rob? I mean, if you're the one looking forward, like how do you, to Colin's analogy of all the weeds, how did you start like wrapping your head around like how to deal with what you've got going on? Because you said some of your peers are not still recovered.
Yeah, no, I would say it was more of a realization that if we are never successful again, it's okay. Like they can't eat me. Like my family, my kids, like the things that matter are going to be okay. My faith is stronger. I would never, like Colin said, nobody would choose to walk through it. But and the benefit from being on the other side of it, I think there were times in the middle of it that you would, you wanted out, but looking in the rearview mirror at it, it's the single greatest growth period of my life, way more than any of the successes. And it certainly, in a way, has made the future successes sweeter because they don't mean as much. Like it's not where my identity is.
The market got worse before it got better. So we're thinking we're getting over this hump, still buying and trying to trade houses, buying on the decline. So I remember it, there was not fresh ideas, an abundance of fresh ideas out there. Oh, let's do this. So I remember it being a struggle for Rob to kind of figure that out because that's where he shines the most. And he found it eventually, thank God. And I guess it was eternal optimism. We can get through this, hand to the plow. Let's keep going. I think you set the tenor as a man for the household, and guys have broad shoulders. So just saying, hey, we're going to get through this. But I find it interesting that our greatest, opportunity in history came at our weakest point, where you're praying that your credit card fills your gas tank, if you're driving something.
Yes. So part of the TARP bailout, I think it was Bush who passed it before he left office, had a lot of different tax incentives. And so I was reading through the program because they had an electric vehicle component, for the Chevy Volt or Tesla or whatever. But in July, the IRS made a ruling in July of 2009 that for the calendar year of 2009, it would apply to neighborhood electric vehicles, which are golf carts, which is what we had sold back in 2000. So it wasn't just any cart. There was a calculation. The tax credit was based on the size of the batteries, basically the kilowatt potential of the vehicle. And you had to get it certified. And we were dead broke. So, I was working every night, doing conference calls and with Chinese manufacturers, trying to find a group in China that would customize a cart with modified batteries to get the credit up higher. And we finally found a group, and you had to get the car certified. So we didn't have the money to.
So Rob, are you doing this without, like, have you tested, or like, hey, Colin, have you tested the marketplace? Like, or was it just the old idea in '99 that you're like, I know that this is a thing?
We know free
So
sells. And so the idea was that
free sells.
Club Car, Easy Go, all these golf cart manufacturers, they had $8,000 golf carts that got a $4,000 credit. Great if you're in the market for it, not compelling to run out and buy 10 of them. We thought, with Rob's idea of reverse engineering, how do we get the maximum battery capacity? And we were the only ones to do it. And so we thought, if we can get our credit high enough and our costs low enough, we can sell the car at a true break even for the
free.
consumer.
Yeah.
And so I remember Rob calling US Battery and saying, hey, you guys make this particular battery, and we'd like to probably buy some of those. They go, well, we only make a few hundred of those a year. It's for a floor sweeper, hospital floor sweeper. They're like, no, we're going to put them in golf carts. Well, no, nobody's ever done that. That's crazy. And so
It's like, I think we're going to need about 80,000.
Yeah, we're going to need a lot of them. So, I mean, it gave the carts the ability to go a 50-mile range, which was, amazing. So, but between July and October, we had to use our dad's credit card, fly a card over here from China, have it tested, have the IRS put their stamp of certification on it. And we basically got that. And
I think we got our approval letter in mid-October of '09. So that basically left us, 45 days or so to sell.
Before you keep going, Rob, Colin, didn't you say in the story that I remember, like, you had to go, like, the test drive, that you didn't even have the money to go test drive? What was that deal?
Yeah, well, that's fast forwarding a little bit, but basically we had one car that we had air freighted over here, but we found we did professional photography in about 100 different locations and scenery to make a catalog of, make it look like a fleet of cars. But so with that one car in a brochure, Colin started the sales process. So we started with some buddies, some friends that bought it. But the general public had a hard time believing that it was real. So our sales were actually slow. Like, free sounds great, but this has got to be a scam. It was people's natural reaction. No, talk to your accountant. And, so enough people were starting to buy. But then I got a call from
John
Stossel's producer. And I was like, I'll have someone call you right back. So I ran back to the office and had Colin call him. And that started that whole chain of events.
So we had a website called freeelectriccar.com, and I'm spending time in Tucson talking to my buddies, lengthy conversations. Let me think about it. And then calling their accountants. And I'm like, what am I doing? And I'm spending time with non-buyers. Like, if you don't want to buy it, don't buy it. There's plenty of people that like it.
It's free. It's free.
Yeah. How do we spell that out for you? So John Stossel goes, hey, I'm doing a new show on Fox Business. I'd like to fly you guys out and kind of talk about how the government's wasting our dollars and how crazy it is, Great. So we came out there, kind of leveraged our trip, got on Anderson Cooper. So Anderson Cooper did a whole deal with Randy Kay with me driving around Columbus Circle, and I'm doing this with a trucker and like a golf cart in New York City. It's bizarre, and this is in December. It's like, 18 degrees outside. So the whole thing suddenly gave us credibility. And then the ABC affiliate in New Jersey picked it up and did an interview. And so we have all these clips online.
But basically those ABC clips are then repackaged and played in every
small market.
Yep.
They'll put their own reporter on there, then show the clip. So
where in the 45 days, Rob, did this happen? So you said you had 45 days before I kind of sidelined this.
We probably sold 1,000 cars by then, which was great because that was enough to dig us out of the hole, but nowhere near, where we wanted to be. But,
so it was December 8th in New York City. So do the whole tour, and then we put it on the website, and pretty soon you just see sales going up, and to the point where it was just like a faucet, and we're like, wow, what is going on? And then we have to hire sales teams to answer phones. Initially, I would forward my office phone to my cell phone at night, and I'd get a call. I got a call one morning at 3 a.m, like, drive electric, and so I was chatting with this nice Southern guy, and he's like, well, you sure know a lot for a call center. And I said, well, no, I'm actually the owner. You're the owner? Well, are you out here in Georgia? No, I'm in Arizona. well, it's 3 a.m. there. Like he couldn't believe that somebody was answering the phone at 3 a.m. And he goes, I had myself a pretty good year last year doing appraisals and surveying, and I got about a $700,000 tax liability. I think I'd like to buy about 100 of them. I'm like, oh, thank God I answered that phone, And so we get guys like that, and they start wiring money in, and so it was a little bit of a crawl and kind of waiting for it, and then you felt like you're in one of those wind tunnels where you have like 10 seconds to grab as much money as you can, and we know it's coming to an end because the deadline is December 31st. That's a great motivator for every consumer. They can't think about it; they have to like execute it. So, I mean, we were.
How are you doing with the working capital here? Like, how, you guys are broke. You're riding bikes. You had to like drive one car around to take pictures of one car. And now you're buying thousands of cars.
Yeah. So basically, we had a manufacturer that was U.S. manufacturer outsourced to China, and we're releasing money, and most of the consumers are paying on customers are paying with a credit card. So PayPal was our merchant services. So suddenly they go, hey, there's 20 million or whatever it was at the time. Like, we got to shut this down. We can't release money, because we're on the hook if you guys just pack up and leave, And it seemed almost like a scam. They couldn't believe what was happening. So we're like, that's our operating capital. We need that money to buy cars and to, ship them over. And so that turned an 8 to 12 week promise. We'll have the car to you delivered to your doorstep. Well, we didn't know how many we'd sell. So we're at New Year's Eve parties, and guys are like, hey, you got to talk to my buddy. And you're like, hey, I want 5 of these. So we're down there till midnight. And then we're like, well, in Hawaii, it's technically not midnight yet. So we keep working for those that are out of state. But basically, in every state, I think even North Dakota, we sold 435 cars or something. So, and then the dust settles, and we look, and we've sold 10,000 cars in about a 45 to 50-day period, and it's $75 million of revenue. And we're like, wow. And then it's like after a storm, the dust settles, the phones aren't ringing. We look at each other and we go, well, now what do we do? And because we hadn't built these cars yet, and so
the problem was enough people had wired money, so we had a few $1 million, $5 or $6 million of cash. But the deal that PayPal worked out was they'd only release money with proof of delivery. So instead of firing up the factory nonstop producing cars, we'd have to wire them money. They'd produce some cars, put them on a ship, and then shut down production. Wait for those the ship to get here. We'd have to get them here, get them assembled, get them on trucks, get them delivered, then get proof of delivery, and then we could start the process again. So it took about a year to deliver the final car.
Now,
so slightly longer than the 8 to 12 that I'm assuming Colin you promised. So how were you dancing like a monkey for about 8 months?
We were doing the two-step like you wouldn't believe, and normal situation where your guys are putting 50 grand on a credit card, and 8 to 12 weeks comes and goes, you'd have about a 95% cancellation rate. Well, by the time that happened, it's April. People have already filed their taxes. They've already gotten the credit, and they're just pissed. And all they can do is call and drop F-bombs and yell at our poor staff. There was like a revolving door of people, working at the front desk, and we kept hiring people like, I can't take it anymore. They walk out crying. It's okay, and like consoling people. Like, I'm happy you're working at, staying at home and taking unemployment. I can't take this abuse. And so it was an interesting thing because we had about 100 people cancel out of 10,000. It was just a God thing. So we went from sales to now we're logistics and production to PR management. And we send the truckers out with a camera, and every one of them, they're taking pictures of people smiling in their golf carts. We're posting them on the website. We're showing the factory. We had to prove to people that this was actually happening, And little by little, the money would be released, and then we ran into some other snafus along the way on production.
Sure. But Colin, I think, ended up stepping in on the sales side or on the managing all these people who were pissed by putting a sales program together where he would call them proactively and let them know where it was. And we're trying to be as brutally honest as we could, explain to them the whole PayPal situation. So give them an accurate projection of what was going to be delivered, but then tell them we wanted when it comes, we want to make sure it's exactly how you want it.
Yeah, so I had a sales team that understood the deal. Hey, you guys have thick skin. You're going to get yelled at. You're going to hear names you've never heard of before, and you just take it, just apologize. But the real reason was, yeah, Brian, I totally get it. Listen, the important thing is your car's, slated for production soon. We want it to come just the way you want it. Your buddy got a ball washer and a lift kit. Are you thinking a wood grain dash or a stereo? And so we make another couple $1,000,000 just on sales, but it was a touch point for us to be able to reach.
You got to tell the 6-person roof story as part of this, Colin. So we by the way, I swear in your previous sale or your previous life, you were a copier salesman, man. I am totally convinced.
So we are realizing that as these containers are coming from China, they take 30 days. Some of these long tops for a 6-seater, they become cracked and we're frustrated and they keep breaking. And we found a local manufacturer out of California, and they promise they can hit that deadline. So we're like, okay, we're not going to order tops from China. We're going to order for the 6-seaters. We're going to order them from you guys. Well, they missed the mark. So we're like, okay, we've got cars with no tops. What do we do? So we're selling 4-seaters and 6-seaters. So we came up with a pretty clever idea. Normally you got the windshield here and the roof was really would overhang. And so we said, let's take a 4-seat top, push it back, and yeah, the back seat's still without shade, but it looks kind of, sporty. And so we put together a brochure and we said, hey, you guys have been so patient. We're going to give you the sport model at no extra cost. It comes with a bikini top and wood grain dash, which costs us $20 and a fuzzy dice or something. And so people would call and say, because we had some of the larger tops on hand. So some people would call and go, hey, I didn't get the sport top. What happened? Like, oh, I'm so sorry. So they'd be pissed that they didn't get the bikini top. And then
that's when you know what you're doing is working.
Yeah, totally. And then there's a few that went, I know what you guys are doing. I don't want that top. No, we'll wait for the big top. We're like, fine. So it was constantly working with people, and people are the same. It's just managing expectations, offering them trust and respect. But really we earned our money that year. We really did. The sales was fun, but then we're like, how do we get, 12 cars in a truck? Well, the trucker would have to take the back step off. So rather than 10, now it's 12 cars. Well, that was a 20% improvement. And well, how do we get them off the truck? These guys are used to backing up to Walmart to a loading dock and driving out. Now they have to put a ramp on. So we'd make a ramp for every truck, and it was too expensive to ship them back. So our sales guys would call the last customer and say, hey, good news, you get a deal on ramps today. And so we try and sell the ramps to that individual. And it was just it was a case study, and like anything that could go wrong went wrong. And it was just absolute fun and perseverance watching everybody shine. And Rob logistically he Google mapped the whole thing and basically was like, we don't want a truck stopping in Albuquerque on their way to Miami. You send the truck straight to Miami with a full load. That way you're not driving empty. And it took a lot of coordination, but it's a rich experience.
So like that whole year must have been just a blur. My God. Like,
yeah.
What did you start?
It was really, Colin's often said it was kind of, building an airplane while you're flying at 30,000 feet in the air. It was really so many different business elements, having to learn logistics, having to, customer side of it, customer management. But I think and then they came in, 50 pieces when they landed. So we had, an assembly plant out in California.
Oh my gosh.
So it was just, coordinating the batteries and the suppliers and,
did you guys how did you figure out the cost of goods with all that stuff to make sure that you had enough money left over when it was all said and done?
Yeah. I think it was around a 30-35% net margin on it. So we had room in there.
Awesome.
Yeah, we had room in there. And I remember talking to a couple of buddies about this idea ahead of time. They're like, no, I wouldn't do that. It sounds like too crazy. The government can change their mind and you've got a bunch of half-built golf carts. And I told my wife, I said, we're going to have to probably cash in the IRA money. And she said, do you have to take all of it? I said, it's not that much anyway. We got to swing for the fences. So we literally had no money. And so there were moments of probably fear, but I think it was really enthusiasm because we do well when we're not on a track and we're running hard and we know what's in front of us and we got a baton in our hand and we felt like we can win this race. And the benefit of having such a short selling season is the customers were motivated to pull the trigger, but no other competition could jump in. And so EasyGo, Club Car, massive billion-dollar companies, well positioned to do this. And another manufacturer was like, I see what you guys did, reverse engineering, getting the higher credit, because ours was a $6,500 credit, not a $4,000 credit. Well, that was basically our profit to be able to sell these at a break even to the customer. So,
yeah, and I think it was a kind of when you're at your lowest, this kind of came as a slow pitch from heaven. Like, it was not rocket science. It just happened to be that our experience, in 2000 and 99 and 2000 was a perfect setup for us. Like, we'd been fortunate enough to already have one run at this and had spent countless wasted conversations of, gosh, we could have done that again. We could have done it so much better, kind of fantasizing about, and then all of a sudden this slow pitch comes when we're dead broke. It was just
crazy.
And it's a second swing at the piñata. And it's two things. It's one, like, I will fight and claw as long as I have air in my lungs to make it, to win. But yet I know I really don't control anything. So it's two very interesting paradigms going, okay, God is sovereign, and it's God's fortune or God's calamity, whatever is happens to be upon me. But it's having a heart of gratitude no matter what. And
isn't it so true, guys? Like, I got to share a story. So one of the every 2 week, $240,000 payroll we had, and like more times than I can count, we couldn't figure out how we're going to pay it. Never missed it. But one of the times, guys, we were, my dad and I were walking to the building and it's like 7:45. We're like, we are totally effed right to this week. It's Wednesday. We got 24 more hours to get the money. We're like 50 grand short. We walk in, this hawk flies up and then lands right on the handicap sign as my dad and I are walking into the building. We're like, I get the goosebumps as I'm telling it right now. Walk in, our CFO is like, hey guys, your customer from 10 years ago called. He sold his building you put a lien on for the copiers and 80 grand got wired into our account.
Wow. What a
like
story.
zero chance you can build a plan on that, but you just go, we got another week.
I know. Got a little bit more air in the tank. A buddy of mine that was really a mentor during the decline, he took me out to lunch one day and he said, do you think God wants you to have wealth? I was like, I've never thought about that. I said, I think I have a knack for it. And he took me to kind of an obscure, portion of scripture where the children of Israel had neglected God's house and their house was good. And he basically said, you're going to reap a harvest, but I'm going to burn your crop. I'm going to put holes in your bags. And it was this total new realization that if God doesn't want you to have it, it's not going to happen. And so it took pressure off. I'm still going to fight with everything in me to win and do everything I can. But you realize that, right time, right place, blind luck. We also realize that windows of opportunity literally can close like that. This was one of them. 9 out of 10 guys might have talked themselves out of it. Just say, it's too risky. There's too many things going on. So I think we've learned to stay in our lane. And obviously, as you build more, you risk less. But I think when it is something that you have the capacity to do, you swing for it. And that's the game changer that creates potentially generational wealth,
When you guys are going through these peaks and valleys, what are like some of your foundational principles that keep you grounded?
Interested in what you have to say.
I would say that's a great question. I think the recognition that everybody goes through it. Either you're coming out of a storm, it's the calm after the storm, or the storm's brewing in life, and it's not all financial. We could get a cancer diagnosis tomorrow, and it's like, it's healthy one day and then dead 3 weeks later. Yeah, like you hear those stories. So I think it's an eternal perspective. It's the recognition that life's a marathon, not a sprint. And Rob's right. We watched our dad pass away, and he did it with dignity and highest level of integrity of any guy I've ever met. He's got 16 grandkids sitting at his bedside, literally. And he's breathing his last and he's blessing each one and praying for him. Is like, wow, there's no like, I wish I had spent another few days at the office doing more surgeries and making more money. It was at Howard Hughes when asked how much money is enough. He said just $1 more. I mean, there's never enough. And I think the recognition that in life, things that you think are going to satisfy you really don't bring fulfillment. They're fun for a while. And yes, having wealth creates opportunities. You get to travel and do stuff. But at the end of the day, why is it that you walk into the grocery store and look at the newsstand and see, everybody with the most fame and wealth and fortune, their kids in drug rehab, they're committing suicide on the National Enquirer, whatever it is. And there's got to be some indication, like, am I chasing after the right thing? Like, we're wired to do that. We're wired to, take our skill set and apply it. And so we still do that, but I think we do it with a better perspective.
Probably a better why. It's the why and what's driving you. And so I think like Colin touched on, I'd echo all of that. I mean, I think you're going to be dead a lot longer than you're alive. And so playing the chord is much better. So what are you focused on? Why are you doing it?
That's good, guys.
Have a purpose. And so
most people don't know their purpose. Yeah. So I think
I agree with you guys. Isn't it crazy? Like, you guys heard my workshop, and it's like, I could sit there for literally weeks and talk about mechanical stuff, right? But like, why are we doing this?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like we can talk about valuations and this and that and the other thing, but like, what are we doing here? And so like, actually, before I ask my next question, it's one of my favorite phrases, guys. This guy Naval, I can't pronounce his last name. He's so insightful. He's a big Silicon Valley guy, but he's very like stoic. And he said that like, regardless of Elon or Bezos, however much money you have, you can't buy a peaceful mind, healthy body, or good relationships, no matter how much money you have. And I was like, that is so interesting. And that's really like, if you think about in the Vistage groups, a lot of successful people, and you're like, at the end of the day, you got your own 6 inches between your head, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully you're all right.
If you win at the office and fail at home, I think it's a sad life. It really is. So I've got 4 kids. Said. Rob's got 5 kids. We work hard to impart, respect for what they have, gratitude, understand what your God-given talent is, and work hard at it. And, it's been fun post Drive Electric to kind of I was
going to say, explain, how did you take that airplane that you were building, and did you land it? Did you trade it for a different airplane, or what was the idea there?
Timing was pretty much perfect. So we landed the airplane, everything was great, and delivered 10,350 something golf carts around the country. So we kept Drive Electric open, just basically on the service side to service existing customers, for a couple of years. But right at that time, I think 2011, we were had a lot of fresh powder and left real estate, so started jumping back into real estate. That was really the bottom. We were buying stuff 2011 at the courthouse steps for
your previous deals, what you said, Rob, right?
Previous deals, but deals, I mean, you look at the history, you're buying them for less than they had sold in 1980 or 1975. Like, I mean, it was just the bottom of the market. And so
I think the investor class was kind of disenchanted a little bit because they think they're buying on the decline in 9 and then 10, and it's still dropping. And so there was really no money on the street. So we did pause for a moment. We took the kids to safaris and, traveled to Europe and really, enriched ourselves in some material way a little bit, just to create experiences.
Get caught back up from the days of the ramen and the bikes, right?
Exactly. Yeah. My wife can get her nails done now and, get her hair colored and that sort of thing, stuff you went without. But I think, again, same thing as the Providential, Drive Electric opportunity. We're now loaded with cash and we can enter the market, and we're buying distressed properties at the lowest point. And so we did some trading, we buy and hold. And so for the last, 12 years, we've kind of worked together with Townsend Kane, and we probably bought over 1,000 houses, 250 million of, of value, and we have a couple hundred rentals now. Probably the biggest game changer in the last 5 years is kind of going, okay, now I'm 53, Rob's 55 recently, and going, okay, suddenly retirement's not that far away. And we had some 401k and IRA money, but I think, again, Rob's foresight of going self-directed mechanisms to be able to have checkbook control to create a Roth 401k that's after-tax dollars that you can get debt leverage on and be able to buy real estate and create wealth within that domain.
Why don't you dive a little bit into that, Colin? Because I think when you guys saw the workshop, we talked about principle 2, and the business is such a huge percentage of the wealth of the entrepreneurs for the most part. But then we forget of the diversification, but because I think of the lack of control, like we're putting into the markets and it's all over the place. But there's this mechanism like you're talking about, that there's interesting ways for the business owner to also be able to shovel some money away and then have a little bit more control. You want to dive into that a little bit more?
I'll let Rob take that one. You can give us step by step.
Yeah. So if you own a business, no more than 50%, so 50% or less of a business that has employees. There you have no employees. You can't own more than 50% of a business that already has employees. Then you can set up what's called a solo 401k. So it's super simple. There's a number of groups online that do it. Neighbors is one that sets them up for my kids, NABERS.
IRA.
It's a 401k, but yeah. So, for example, I think in 2016 we set ours up. So that year the limit was 18,000. So we each put in 18,000. So here we have and then my 401k and his 401k funded one LLC. So that's our retirement plan LLC.
Got it.
We have 50% each in our 401ks. But with 36,000 in there, we've grown into multiple 7-figure number by buying real estate, because you can use leverage. You can't personally guarantee the leverage, so you can use non-recourse money. But I have friends in other businesses. So every business entrepreneur is different, but they come across opportunities that oftentimes can be tailored. Like if you come across a new partnership you're going to set up, you can put that in your 401k, like a new location or a new whatever. So there's opportunities that different entrepreneurs have that can be directed to that self-directed.
It's kind of similar, Rob. It's actually called the Rob's program, where people are buying companies with their 401k. I got a couple clients that have done that.
Yeah. So the Rob's program is a little bit different in that you're buying. Actually, I think you can start a business doing that too, right? With the Rob's program.
Yeah, that's a little bit above my awareness, but I believe so, depending on the startup costs. I don't know exactly some of the nuances, but yeah, I think there's some just crazy flexibility that most people aren't aware of.
But I mean, it's the same 401k pension plan rules have been around forever. I remember my dad's office as a doctor, they would do hard money loans or, buy properties or whatever. But it's only in the last couple decades that it's really become more popular for economy.
But if somebody has W-2 income, they can set up a sole proprietorship or a consulting company, something, and as long as you're paying that self-employment tax, and taking the hit, then you contribute that into a self-directed plan where it does give you checkbook control. Our first deal, we had $36,000 in there, and we come across a building that is a 19,000 square foot building that is, a nonprofit went under, and they weren't thinking like an owner. They're thinking like a nonprofit. It didn't benefit any of them. They just want to get rid of it. And they're selling it for like $30 a foot or something. And this is like a, kind of a drug rehab, behavioral health. You've got the grandfathered zoning in a neighborhood. You'd never be able to get it. Nobody wants that in the backyard. So we end up buying it, and we find private money. Guy put $600,000 in. We paid $650. So we're $620. I think we're barely, have enough there. And then we have a built-in tenant. And so, I mean, that building's probably worth $4 million right now, And
That's so awesome.
Yeah. And so it can't be an active business. We can't commingle funds. And so it's a patient money thing. As the cash flows come in, we'll buy more properties and hold them. And it's been
we hold properties for at least a year, but our goal is to flip only enough properties that we need to live off of. And any other,
I was gonna ask. What are you guys solving for right now with this new perspective of the peaks and valleys you've gone through?
yeah, leverage. I would say we had a conservative approach towards leverage. It's extremely more conservative now. Like I think the probably 2/3 of our properties are free and clear, and then we have leverage on some properties. But I think it was a hard lesson to learn in '08 that leverage cuts both ways, and so I think there's a place for leverage, but we're definitely just given our experience, probably our temperance is a little bit more conservative at this point.
I think the market's changed a little bit as well. There's some uncertainty out there. Is there commercial calamity that's going to happen?
I was gonna ask you. We don't have to go down this rabbit hole, but like I think you guys follow ITR, or maybe you do a little bit because of Vistage, but like the commercial real estate market, it's probably screaming a little bit of the same kind of flavors that you guys went through in '08.
Yeah. Can you imagine owning a 10-story Class B office building in the middle of
Holy shit, you guys!
I
saw
keys back to the bank. That's going to be some blood in the water. We do single family. We do some interesting things. We've got that building we talked about. We've got a fraternity house with 25 bedrooms. Anything that kind of makes sense. Assisted living. On the real estate side, memory care. But I think part of our strategy is to, we're kind of buying and holding properties that have existing debt on them, and we'll buy those subject to the loans at 3 or 4% that consumers might have, and we disclose it to the lender that what we're doing, and it enables you to kind of informally assume a loan, that has a low percentage rate, and but we're being cautious. We think there's trouble ahead, in our little micro market is pretty healthy. Real estate is underbuilt.
I do think the residential real estate side is a little bit different than the calamity that I see coming for the commercial.
I know, isn't it so interesting, Rob, how everybody thinks it's going to happen again the same way? And I'm like, no, the quote unquote crash is the fact that no one can afford their houses. That's the actual issue, right? Versus like, there's not going to be a drop because there's not these subprime loans. It's just not the same.
Yeah, and I think people who are lucky enough to have a 2.5% mortgage are not wanting to get that up. They're going to keep that house. They're going to keep that mortgage.
I know I got 2.85. If I sold my house, I'd have to buy a house half the value of my current house. It doesn't make any sense.
It keeps the supply low, though.
And relatively little inventory has been built since '08. Like from the pace, it was overbuilt in '08, but the amount of inventory that's been built really it was much less in population growth. And each market's different, but certainly for Arizona. So I think there's a structural undersupply of residential inventory. Now construction costs are up, and they can't deliver new product below that cost. So it's kind of another support for the floor. So
yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And
yeah.
I'm curious, like, you guys mentioned retirement, and you guys don't appear to me as being people that are just going to like hang out on a chair and do nothing all day long. So like, what does it mean to you how are you thinking about your time and what you're doing with it differently as you're moving forward?
Yeah, I think, like Colin said, we took a small break after Drive Electric. My kids were still in high school and younger, and so I kind of wanted to front load a lot of our trips before they got older. Climbed Kilimanjaro, went on a number of mission trips to Africa, and
cool,
great experiences. And so I think that is still a priority for me, to continue to have family trips and be in a position to be able to do that and provide that for my family as it is now growing. My kids are getting married.
Do you see yourself kind of always doing some deals and hanging out, like
Absolutely.
Mingling? Yeah, like why not, right?
I don't see that as work. It's like, that's
right.
I think the tasks will be different, but like you gave a workshop on the different ways of disposition of a company, right? You sell the competitor, do you go private, private equity group or whatever. But this through Entrepreneur was kind of an interesting idea, and I thought, man, my kids, I've got 3 boys and a girl, and they're in real estate finance and doing things. One's going to get an MBA. And I thought, I would love to have a small family office where we really tee those things up. because
Oh, fun.
my boys are seasoned, and they're growing, and they're learning under really great mentors right now, working for companies like Trammell Crow and JLL, and they're going to learn much more than I could teach them. And so I think bringing new skill sets to the table, I look forward to that. But I think retirement is doing what you want when you want with the people you love, and so I've got one grandbaby, and it's like I'm looking at his video all the time, because the camera, they gave me a link, and so I think it becomes more about that.
That's awesome, guys. My dad just moved 4 minutes away from me, and like it's so funny because I don't know if you guys remember the vision wheel that we were doing. We were talking about like where the business fits in your life, and people are always like family harmony. I'm like, yeah. I mean, I'm projecting, so you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but like there are people like if you enjoy your family where you just want to talk about business, it's like what else are we going to talk about? It's fun stuff to talk about, like versus like I'm not a sports family, so like like for years I had nothing to talk about with my dad. He wasn't doing anything. I was just like, I don't know what to talk about with you, and now he's back in the game and he's hustling, and it's just like, hey, this is now fun. Who cares? Like we got nothing else to talk about.
I just don't see us ever pulling out of that, because I think
Right.
a quick demise, this is when you begin to die, because we
Yeah.
loved it. And I think teaching others and mentoring them, and that's part of giving back and trying to help other people get where they want to go. Absolutely.
That's awesome. Hey guys, I this has been an absolute blast. I'm glad that we got this to finally work, and we'll have to give Wyatt a big thank you. Two last questions. So I like to ask people what the word intentional means because the name of the show, that's a big component of what we're doing. So no particular order. What is the definition of intentional for each of you guys?
What comes to mind for me is living life on purpose, and it is oftentimes doing what's hard but what's right. And delayed gratification is, it's a learned skill. And everybody wants the shiny object in front of them, and they don't realize, wow, if I delay that, I get 10 shiny objects down the road. And it's a patient, wise person to kind of, grow into that. So I think intentional is oftentimes not doing what feels good, but it's the right choice.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think being anchored, what we're all anchored to something. So I think it's easy for life to blow you off course or circumstances to distract you. And so I think it's for me, it's what anchors me. So I think family
I
and
like that.
faith.
I like it. Guys, if the listeners want to reach out, how do they follow you? How do they reach out? What's the best place?
Our website is townsendkane.com, TOWNSENDKANE.com. Best way to reach us is through a website. You can look at our profiles and phone numbers there.
Rob and Colin, man, you guys, this has been a lot of fun. So I appreciate you guys' time.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Really enjoyed it.